Hey guys, tonight we drift back a few thousand years to when the moon still watched over the slow heartbeat of the Nile. You're lying on a simple mat woven from reeds, and the air smells faintly of earth baked in yesterday's sun. Outside, a rooster announces that the world is, regrettably, awake again. The village stirs to life. Soft footsteps, murmured voices, the splash of a jug meeting water. Welcome to your morning in an Egyptian village by the Nile. You probably won't survive this particular climate, but that's fine, you're only visiting. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first breath of dawn carries a chill, but it's a short-lived mercy. Soon enough, the sun will spill its golden heat over everything, and the mud brick walls of your small home will trap it like a patient oven. You rise, stretching the sleep from your shoulders, and your bare feet meet the cool, packed earth of the floor. The room around you is simple: low ceiling, rough walls, a few clay jars, and woven baskets. The faint snoring from the corner reminds you that your younger brother hasn't moved an inch all night, sprawled like a cat across his mat. You nudge him lightly with your toe. He groans, half dreaming still, and mutters something about the grain rations. A thin sliver of light peeks through the small window hole, dust motes dancing lazily in it. The village outside is waking. Somewhere, a donkey brays indignantly, as if complaining about the same chores it performs every morning. You step through the doorway, no door, just a hanging reed mat, and greet the cool morning air. Beyond your little courtyard, the landscape opens to a horizon of green and gold. The Nile stretches out like a shimmering ribbon, its waters reflecting the pale blush of dawn. On either side, the fertile floodplain lies heavy with promise: barley, wheat, papyrus. Farther beyond, where the lushness fades, the desert waits in silent patience, its sands glowing faintly even in early light. A few neighbors are already up. Old Mena, whose back is as crooked as the river's bend, is coaxing his goat out of its pen. The animal seems just as stubborn as he is. Across the narrow lane, the potter's wife sweeps the ground in front of her home, humming a tune that's probably been sung here for 1,000 mornings. You wave to her and she nods, the rhythm of her broom never breaking. Your day begins with water, always water. Without it, nothing here exists. You pick up a large clay jar and balance it against your hip, feeling its rough surface against your skin. The path to the river is a short one, lined with worn footprints, and the smell of wet earth grows stronger as you approach. As you walk, the air begins to fill with the small sounds of a village alive. Laughter, a child crying because someone stole his reed toy, the rhythmic thump of a woman grinding grain. You pause for a moment to take it in, the pulse of life, simple and cyclical, as familiar as the Nile itself. Reaching the water's edge, you crouch down, dipping the jar carefully to avoid stirring up the mud. The water is cool and smooth against your fingers. You can see tiny fish darting away from your shadow. Across the river, a fisherman's boat glides past, the man inside casting his net with practiced grace. The smell of fish mingles with the scent of river reeds and the faint sweetness of lotus blossoms. It's strange to think that this river, this very water, is the same that carried Pharaoh's barges and fed the gods' temples downstream. Historians still argue whether every village like yours truly owed its life to organized irrigation or just the whims of the Nile's flooding. But for you, it's simple. If the water rises just enough, your crops live. If it doesn't, you pray harder next year. You take a moment to stretch your back and watch the sunrise paint the sky in soft oranges and pinks. The light hits the mud brick homes of the village, turning them the color of honey. It's beautiful if you can forget for a second that the day's labor is about to begin. There's a myth, one your grandmother whispered when you were small, that the sun itself sails across the sky on a divine bark driven by Ra, and that every night Ra must fight off the serpent of darkness, Apophis, before rising again victorious at dawn. It's comforting in a way to believe that even gods have bad nights sometimes. You lift your jar carefully and start back toward home, the weight pressing into your hip bone. Along the path, you pass a few familiar faces. A young girl balancing two smaller jars on a yoke across her shoulders, and an old priest collecting offerings of bread and oil for the small local shrine. He nods politely, eyes half closed in morning prayer. Halfway back, a gust of wind stirs the reeds, and you catch the unmistakable smell of wet clay. Someone's already firing pots for the day's market. You make a mental note to check whether they've made any new oil lamps. The last one in your house flickers like it's haunted. By the time you reach your home again, the village is fully awake. Smoke rises from dozens of small fires as breakfasts are cooked, and chickens run free in narrow alleys, pecking at invisible treasures. Your mother is already kneading dough on a low table, her hands quick and sure. She greets you with a glance and a small smile, the kind that says, "Good, you're useful today." You set the water jar down and dip a small bowl into it, splashing your face. The coolness shocks you awake. Outside, the sun is climbing fast now, and the shadows grow shorter. The day's heat is beginning to press down like a slow hand. A cat, the same one that always lurks near your doorway, winds around your legs, meowing for scraps. You reach down to scratch behind its ears. Its fur feels dusty but warm. "You'll get your fish later," you mumble. The cat blinks, unimpressed, and stalks off to terrorize a lizard instead. You glance once more toward the river. It's strange how it looks different every hour. Soft and silvery at dawn, blazing gold by noon, black glass under the moon. It never stops moving, and yet it always stays. A little like the people here, you think. The same faces, the same chores, repeating endlessly, generation after generation, and yet somehow always alive. Some scholars today still debate whether villages like yours were as peaceful as they look. Were they harmonious, cooperative communities, or tightly controlled clusters serving temple estates and tax collectors? You wouldn't know. For you, life is a series of small tasks and larger hopes. You fetch water, plant seed, patch roofs, pay dues, and pray the floods come on time. Still, there's comfort in the rhythm. The Nile has seen empires rise and crumble, kings crowned and forgotten, yet it always gives, always takes, always returns. You step inside again, the air already warmer, and reach for the clay bowl holding yesterday's leftover beer, thick, yeasty, and sour but strangely refreshing. You take a sip, grimace, and smile anyway. Breakfast can wait. For now, you just listen to the hum of the village, the heartbeat of your world. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs, a dog barks, the river murmurs. The day has truly begun. The jar feels lighter now, empty but faintly cool against your skin as you walk back toward the river once more. It's still early, though the sun is already making bold moves above the eastern hills. The light spills through the reeds like liquid gold, and the hum of insects rises with the warmth. The morning air smells of wet mud and crushed papyrus, and somewhere nearby, a heron cries out, offended by something invisible. Fetching water isn't just a chore, it's a ritual. Everyone does it. Everyone must. The Nile gives life, and so you come to it every day like a humble petitioner. You follow the familiar path that winds between small gardens of lentils, onions, and flax, all nourished by the narrow irrigation ditches that snake away from the main river. The path is worn smooth by countless feet, by your parents' parents and theirs before them. Ahead of you, a small crowd is already gathered near the bank. The women laugh softly among themselves, balancing jars and baskets on their heads, moving with the easy grace of those who've done this since childhood. The younger girls chatter about nothing, someone's new bead necklace, a rumor about a traveling merchant, the weather's stubborn refusal to rain. You catch snippets of conversation as you approach, and it feels like a gentle current of its own, flowing parallel to the river. A donkey stands tethered nearby, flicking its tail with slow annoyance. You set your jar down, wipe the sweat from your forehead, and crouch beside the water. The surface glimmers, smooth but alive with motion. You fill your jar carefully, tilting it just enough so the silt doesn't rise from the riverbed. The sound of water pouring in is deeply satisfying, an earthy, rounded gurgle that feels older than language. Beside you, two women are arguing about which year's flood was the worst. No, that was the year the fish died, one insists. The other scoffs. The fish always die when your husband goes fishing, she replies, and they both burst out laughing. You smile to yourself. Egyptian gossip is apparently eternal. A boy runs past, kicking up sand. He's chasing a chicken that clearly wants nothing to do with him. You step aside as the chase swirls dangerously close to the river's edge. Careful, you call out, but the boy only grins, triumphant as he snatches a feather and declares victory. The chicken, you suspect, disagrees. A little further down the bank, a group of men are washing tools, wooden plows, baskets, and nets, preparing for the day's labor. They nod as you pass, and one of them, Old Ket, calls out, "The river's cooler today. She must be in a good mood." You nod politely, though you've never quite understood how people can read the Nile's moods. Maybe it's like reading someone's face. You just have to know her well enough. The river here is wide and slow, and the opposite bank looks hazy in the distance. You can just make out the dark line of palm trees, and beyond them, the rise of sandy desert. It's strange to think that only a few hundred paces separate life from death, green fertility from endless dryness. Historians still argue whether this sharp contrast is what gave Egyptians their obsession with order and chaos, life and death. But standing here, you can almost feel it, the delicate balance that holds everything together. As you hoist the jar onto your shoulder, your muscles protest slightly. You've done this hundreds of times, but somehow the jar always feels heavier on the way back. You shift the weight, steadying it with your hand, and begin the slow climb up the small embankment. The women behind you are still laughing, their voices carrying on the morning breeze like song. You pass a fig tree where two elders sit in the shade, arguing over something that sounds suspiciously like politics. "The temple taxes are higher again," one grumbles. "It's the gods' will," the other replies dryly. "Or at least the priests." You bite back a laugh. It's comforting, in a way, that no era is free from complaining about taxes. The path narrows again between two houses. Their walls are plastered in faded white, cracked in places where the sun has baked them too long. Chickens scatter as you walk past, and a lazy dog lifts its head, yawns, then decides you're not worth the effort. A woman leaning out her doorway calls a greeting. You stop for a moment, setting down your jar to catch your breath. She asks whether you've heard the latest rumor, that a group of traveling traders arrived yesterday from the north, bringing exotic goods and strange news. "They say they've seen men with skin pale as milk," she says, eyes wide. You nod politely, though you're not sure what to make of it. Foreign stories always get exaggerated by the time they reach a small village like yours. Still, you make a mental note to check the market later, in case the rumor brings new trinkets or spices. Egyptians, after all, love a bit of novelty, especially if it glitters. A dragonfly hovers near your ear, its wings catching the sunlight like tiny shards of glass. You pause for a moment to watch it dance above the ditch, its movement so precise it feels deliberate. Nature here is never still, never silent. The hum of insects, the croak of frogs, the distant bray of donkeys, all blend into a rhythm you've learned not to notice but can't live without. You reach the cluster of homes near the village center, where several women have gathered to rest their jars and chat. The air smells faintly of bread baking, someone's oven already at work. You join the circle for a moment, pretending to adjust your load, but really, you just want to listen. They're talking about a neighbor whose husband went to work on a tomb near Thebes and hasn't returned in months. He's probably fine, one says, though her tone suggests otherwise. Or he's joined a caravan, wife up there, another adds with a smirk. The group erupts in knowing laughter. You try not to grin too widely, it's not polite, but the idea of the absent husband and his imaginary new bride is apparently the joke of the week. A younger woman turns to you suddenly. "You're quiet today," she says. "Dreaming about someone?" The group giggles. You shake your head quickly. "Just dreaming about finishing my chores before the sun cooks me," you reply. That earns another laugh. You like this. These moments of small talk, harmless teasing. It's how the village keeps itself alive, a thread of humanity woven through the routine. As you finally lift your jar again and head toward home, you pass the small shrine near the edge of the lane. A simple stone altar, worn smooth by years of hands and offerings. Someone's placed fresh flowers there this morning, and the faint scent of lotus mingles with incense smoke. You pause briefly to whisper a quiet thanks to the gods, the river, or maybe just the day itself. It's a habit, not a plea. You've learned that the gods are busy, and you prefer not to bother them unless absolutely necessary. The rest of the walk is quiet. The village dogs have settled in the shade, and the sky has turned from soft gold to blinding white. The heat presses gently at first, then insistently until sweat prickles your forehead. You shift the jar again, trying not to spill. When you finally reach home, your arms tremble slightly. You set the jar down with a sigh of relief and straighten up. The courtyard smells of fresh bread and damp earth. Your mother glances up from her work, gives an approving nod, and says, "Good timing, breakfast's ready." As you wash your hands in a small bowl of cool water, you hear the faint laughter of the women still by the riverbank, carried on the wind. For a moment, it feels like music. Life here isn't easy, but it's full of voices, routines, tiny joys that flow together like the river itself. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptian villages were truly communal or quietly divided by class and occupation. Maybe they were both. To you, it just feels like family, loud, nosy, and impossibly warm. The sun climbs higher, and the Nile glimmers like molten bronze in the distance. Tomorrow, you'll walk the same path again, carry the same jar, hear the same jokes. But somehow, it won't feel the same at all. By the time you step back into your courtyard, the smell of breakfast wraps around you like a warm blanket. Barley bread baking on the flat clay griddle sends out a sweet, nutty scent that mixes with the tang of chopped onions and herbs. You set your water jar down and stretch your shoulders, rolling out the stiffness from the morning walk. The air is already thick with heat, and the small house hums with quiet motion. Someone stirring, someone muttering, someone chasing a cat. Your mother kneels near the hearth, turning the bread with quick, sure fingers that have done this every morning since forever. The dough puffs slightly, darkening in spots. Beside her, a small clay bowl of salt sits next to a plate of boiled lentils, a few pickled radishes, and a wedge of soft cheese wrapped in leaves. It's a humble spread, but your stomach growls anyway. Your younger brother finally emerges from his corner, rubbing his eyes like he's survived an ordeal. He yawns loud enough to startle the family chicken, who flaps its wings indignantly and escapes toward the doorway. "You slept through the whole morning," you tell him. "The sun nearly gave up waiting." He squints at you. "I was dreaming about being Pharaoh," he mumbles. You grin. "Then go tell Pharaoh to fetch his own water next time." He sticks out his tongue, and you toss him a chunk of bread fresh off the griddle. It's still steaming, the crust crisp, the inside soft and earthy. He catches it awkwardly, blows on it, then takes a triumphant bite. A crumb falls to the floor, and immediately the cat, slender, gray, eyes sharp as moonlight, pounces. "There's your royal taster," you say. "If the cat survives, maybe we can eat too." The cat ignores you, of course. Cats here aren't really pets. They're co-residents with an inflated sense of entitlement. Egyptians adore them. Some even keep little amulets shaped like Bastet, the cat-headed goddess of home and protection. Historians still argue whether cats were truly sacred or just exceptionally good at pretending they were. Either way, your cat seems aware of her divine status. You sit cross-legged on the floor, tearing a piece of bread and dipping it into a bowl of crushed fava beans. The taste is simple, salty, grounding. A breeze sneaks in through the reed mat hanging in the doorway, bringing with it the distant sound of someone shouting at a stubborn donkey. Breakfast, like most things here, comes with background noise. Your mother places a small jug of beer next to you. Thick, yeasty, and low in alcohol, the kind even children drink. You take a sip. It's sour but strangely refreshing, especially with the warmth of the bread. The beer is made from leftover barley, half fermented, strained through reeds. It's not glamorous, but it keeps everyone hydrated and vaguely cheerful. A light thud draws your attention to the corner where a pot has tipped over. Your little sister sits beside it, trying to look innocent while grains of barley scatter across the floor. You sigh, leaning over to help. "What were you doing?" you ask. "Feeding the spirits?" She shakes her head, eyes wide. "No, the chicken was hungry." You glance at the doorway, no chicken in sight. "Well," you say, "it looks like your generosity flew away." She giggles, delighted at her own chaos. Breakfast in an Egyptian household isn't a formal affair. There are no tables, no chairs, just woven mats on the floor and hands instead of utensils. Everyone eats from the same dishes, sharing without ceremony. Conversation drifts easily between chores, gossip, and dreams. Your mother mentions that the temple scribe passed through the village yesterday, taking notes for the next tax collection. You groan softly. "Did he stop here?" you ask. "Not yet," she says, "but he will." You stare at your bowl. Taxes, even in the time of gods and pyramids, are eternal. The grain you harvest later this month will already have invisible portions claimed by the state, the temple, and the overseers. The gods are generous, but their accountants are relentless. Still, there's humor even in grumbling. Your brother leans over and whispers, "Maybe if we tell them the cat ate the grain, they'll tax her instead." Your mother gives him a look sharp enough to slice papyrus. "Don't joke about the temple," she warns, though a small smile betrays her. "The priests have ears like falcons." You finish your bread, wiping your fingers on the hem of your tunic. The morning light slants through the doorway now, drawing golden shapes on the floor. Dust motes drift lazily in the beam. Outside, the rhythmic beat of someone pounding grain echoes across the lane, steady as a drum. It's easy to forget how old these sounds are, how every motion, every word spoken here has a history deeper than memory. The bread you're eating is nearly the same kind found in tomb offerings thousands of years later. Somewhere, deep in a royal burial chamber, a loaf just like this one rests untouched, waiting for a spirit who never returned. You glance around your small home. The walls are decorated with nothing more than what life provides. Baskets hung from pegs, a few clay pots stacked in a corner, a bundle of reeds tied neatly for mending. The roof beams are palm trunks, covered with layers of mud and straw. It leaks a little when it rains, but the last rain was months ago, and you half forget what rain even sounds like. "Eat more," your mother says suddenly, placing another piece of bread on your mat. "You'll need strength for the fields." You nod, though your mind drifts elsewhere, to the fields themselves, stretching along the Nile, green and endless. You'll be there soon enough, under the relentless sun, your hands deep in soil that remembers every generation before you. For now, though, breakfast is peaceful. The children bicker softly, the cat curls into a ball near the hearth, and your mother hums an old tune, one she probably learned from her own mother. It's a song without words, just the gentle repetition of notes, a melody shaped like home. You take another bite, savoring the quiet. A fly buzzes near your ear. You wave it away. Outside, you can hear your neighbor calling for her husband, her voice rising like a seagull's. Somewhere beyond, a potter's wheel begins to spin, rhythmic and steady. Egyptian mornings are full of sound, but never hurry. Life here doesn't rush. It unfolds. You glance toward the open doorway and catch sight of the Nile in the distance, glimmering like molten glass. It's hard not to think about how everything begins and ends with that river. Even breakfast depends on it. The grain, the beer, the fish that might appear later in the stew. The Nile isn't just a river, it's the village's quiet heartbeat. A stray memory floats through your mind. Your grandfather once said the river has moods, like people do, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce. He claimed he once saw it turn red during a great flood, though historians still argue whether that was an algae bloom or just an old man's story. You like to believe him anyway. Your brother breaks your daydream by announcing that he's full. "You're never full," your mother replies. "You're lazy." He grins, lazy like a sacred cat. You snort into your beer. The cat opens one eye, unimpressed. "See," he says, "even she agrees." The humor lightens the air, even as the heat grows heavier. You rise to your feet, brushing crumbs from your tunic. The day waits outside. Fields to tend, errands to run, gods to appease. But for a few seconds, you let yourself stand still in the doorway, eyes half closed, feeling the sunlight creep across your face. Somewhere down the lane, a neighbor begins to sing, her voice slow and smooth, blending with the rustle of palm leaves. The song rises and falls like the river's own melody. You hum along quietly without realizing it, a harmony shared across generations. Then your mother's voice cuts through the calm, "Don't forget to patch that basket before you go." You smile, because of course she's right. There's always one more thing to fix, one more task to do. The cat yawns, stretches, and looks at you as if to say, "Good luck with that." You step outside into the sunlight, the warmth wrapping around you instantly. The courtyard glows in shades of clay and gold. Somewhere behind you, laughter rings out again, and the smell of bread lingers on your hands. The day has officially begun, and breakfast feels like the small ceremony that allowed it to happen. The sun is higher now, casting long white spears of light across the fields as you make your way down the narrow dirt path. The air carries the faint scent of wet soil, mingled with smoke from cooking fires still smoldering back in the village. Each step takes you closer to the heartbeat of your world, the fields that feed everyone you know. You pass the irrigation ditch first, its water glinting like a silver thread, trickling slowly through channels carved by hand. You kneel for a moment, dipping your fingers into it. Cool, alive, and faintly gritty. It's strange to think that this small stream is really just a fingertip of the Great Nile, stretched thin and delicate, but still pulsing with the same life. Your neighbor, old Kepri, is already there ahead of you, his back bent like a question mark as he works the soil with a wooden hoe. He looks up briefly and waves the tool in greeting. "Late start today," he calls, not unkindly. You wave back. "Breakfast took longer than expected." "Ah," he says with a grin, "bread always makes us forget time. The gods forgive it." You find your patch of field, a small but fertile plot of wheat and flax, and begin your own work. The soil crumbles easily under your hands, warm and familiar. You use a short-handed hoe to turn it over, pushing it down into the earth in slow, rhythmic strokes. The sound, thud, scrape, thud, mixes with the hum of insects and the occasional croak of a distant frog. The river's gift is here, in every handful of dark, rich soil. Every year, when the Nile floods, it leaves behind a layer of black silt so fertile that even lazy farmers can coax miracles from it. The word for this land, Kemet, literally means the black land. Beyond it lies the endless desert, the Deshret, the red land, where nothing grows but bones and legend. You can see a strip of it now, glowing faintly on the horizon. The boundary between life and death is only a few hundred steps wide. You pause for a moment, wiping sweat from your brow. The sun feels heavier by the minute. Around you, other villagers work in quiet rhythm, some tending onions, others weeding flax, or repairing the small earthen ridges that guide the irrigation flow. Every movement has its place, every person their rhythm. It's like a dance, one your body remembers even when your mind drifts elsewhere. You think about the taxes again, because how could you not? When harvest time comes, the temple scribes will walk through these same rows, tallying grain with little wooden counters, writing neat hieroglyphs on papyrus scrolls. You'll hand over a portion of your crop, smiling politely, because to do otherwise would mean trouble. The temple feeds the gods, the scribes say, but you're pretty sure the gods prefer fine bread and wine, not sweaty laborers' offerings. Still, you pay. Everyone pays. You lean on your hoe for a moment and glance toward the river. A boat drifts lazily by, its sail billowing white in the sunlight. Probably merchants or fishermen heading downstream. The sight makes you pause. How effortless it looks, gliding with the current. No dirt under their nails. But then again, someone has to feed them too. Historians still argue whether the majority of Egyptian farmers were free peasants or bound laborers tied to temple estates. Standing here, under the hot sun, you don't feel particularly free or enslaved, just necessary. Without you and others like you, the temples would starve, the cities would empty, and even Pharaoh's grand processions would grind to a halt. It's a small thought that carries a quiet kind of pride. A flicker of movement catches your eye, something darting near the irrigation ditch. You squint and see it. A frog, slick and green, leaping from the mud. You chuckle softly. Frogs mean the water's good, the land fertile. There's even a goddess for that, Hecate, who takes the form of a frog and symbolizes new life. Your grandmother used to say that when you hear frogs singing, the gods are smiling. You straighten your back and stretch, feeling the pull of your muscles. The fields stretch endlessly before you, dotted with other workers, their heads wrapped in linen, skin glistening with sweat. The air vibrates with heat and the steady rhythm of effort. Somewhere nearby, a man hums a tune, a field song passed down for generations, meant to keep the body moving even when the spirit tires. As you work, you find a rhythm that quiets the mind. The repetitive motion, the weight of the tool, the sound of the earth giving way. It's strangely meditative. The world narrows to sun, soil, breath. You lose track of time until the shadow of a bird crosses the ground beside you. You look up to see a white ibis gliding low over the river, wings outstretched, graceful and silent. Some say the ibis is sacred to Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. Maybe he's checking in to see if you're working hard enough. You chuckle to yourself and get back to it. A few rows down, a small boy, someone's son, maybe Mena's, drops a bundle of reeds into the water and watches them float. "It's a boat!" he shouts, delighted. You grin. Every child here learns to make boats out of reeds, pretending to sail like pharaohs. The boy's laughter carries across the field like wind. Later, as the sun begins to climb toward its zenith, you pause for a sip of water. The clay jug you brought is still cool inside, though the outside feels hot enough to cook an egg. You drink deeply, the earthy taste grounding you. Sweat trickles down your temples, and you wipe it away with the back of your hand. Somewhere, you hear a donkey bray, a long, exasperated complaint that somehow mirrors your own thoughts. You think briefly of the strange visitors, the gossiping women mentioned earlier, the pale-skinned merchants from the north. You've never seen such people, though traders from distant lands do pass through sometimes. They bring copper, incense, and exotic oils, and take away grain and papyrus. It's funny, you think, how this little strip of green land manages to feed not just itself, but half the world that floats down its river. You notice something glittering half buried in the soil near your foot. You kneel and dig it out. A small blue bead, no larger than a lentil, smooth and faintly shining. It's the color of the sky. Faience maybe, the glazed ceramic Egyptians loved to make. You roll it between your fingers, marveling at its coolness. Someone must have dropped it seasons ago. Or maybe it was an offering washed here by the flood. You tuck it into your belt for later. A small treasure to remind you that even in the dirt, beauty hides. Work continues, slow and steady. The field smells of damp earth and crushed stems. Bees drift lazily from flower to flower. The rhythm of the hoe becomes hypnotic again. You imagine the Nile rising just enough this year to keep everything alive. Not too much, not too little. It's a fragile balance, one you can't control, but somehow trust. Historians still debate whether the ancient Egyptians were optimistic because of the Nile's reliability, or simply resigned to its power. Standing here, you suspect it's both. You can't fear what you depend on entirely. You can only learn to live with it. After a few hours, your hands are sore and your arms ache, but the rows look neat and tidy. You take a deep breath, feeling the earthy scent fill your lungs. The sun beats down relentlessly, but a soft wind stirs the reeds, offering a brief relief. You rest for a moment, leaning on your hoe. Around you, the others begin to gather their tools too. It's nearly time to stop for a short break, to find shade and food before the afternoon's heat becomes unbearable. You glance back toward the village, where faint wisps of smoke still rise. Somewhere behind those walls, bread will be cooling, and perhaps your cat is already scheming about lunch. For now, you look once more at the river, shimmering like liquid gold. The boat you saw earlier has drifted farther downstream, nearly out of sight. The ibis is gone, the frog quiet. The land hums softly with life. You can't help but feel that this is what eternity must look like. Not grand temples or golden tombs, but a single morning of work beside the Nile, unchanged for thousands of years, endlessly repeating, endlessly alive. The midday sun is merciless now. The air shimmers above the earth, and each breath feels as though it has to push through a layer of heat before it reaches your lungs. The tools grow hot in your hands, and the soil, so cool and soft in the morning, now burns faintly when touched. The workers around you begin to drift toward the few patches of shade that line the field's edge, a sparse row of palms and acacia trees bending lazily over the irrigation ditch. You follow, your steps heavy but steady. The sound of running water grows louder as you near the shade, a quiet gurgle that soothes the ringing heat. The first thing you do is kneel and splash your face. The shock of coolness feels divine. It trails down your neck and arms, washing away dust and fatigue. Someone has already laid out a woven mat, and others sit nearby, unwrapping bundles of food. Round loaves of barley bread, onions, and a few small dried fish. You sit cross-legged, grateful for the break. Across from you, Khepri sits down with a groan, rubbing his knees. "These old bones," he mutters, though his grin remains. He breaks a loaf in half and offers you a piece. You take it, nodding in thanks. "Flood's been good this year," he says after a moment. "The river blessed us. Maybe we'll finally have enough to trade for some decent beer." You smile. "Beer first, then Kempel dues. That's what I always say." Khepri chuckles, crumbs caught in his beard. "Don't let the priests hear that. They'll claim the gods thirst more than we do." The two of you eat in companionable silence for a while. The bread is coarse but filling, the fish salty and satisfying. Someone passes around a small clay jug of beer, cloudy, thick, and slightly sour, but cool enough to taste like heaven. It's the common drink here, safer than river water and rich enough to fill your belly. You sip slowly, feeling the tension ease from your shoulders. The hum of voices around you blends with the lazy buzz of insects and the steady murmur of the ditch. You lie back for a moment, resting on your elbows, watching the palm fronds shift above you. The sky between them is blinding blue, the kind of blue you only see here, endless, bright, and almost sacred. As your mind drifts, you think again of home. The small mud brick walls, the smell of bread, your cat sleeping by the door. Life is simple, but it holds its quiet treasures. You remember your father telling you, long ago, that to live in balance with the river is the highest wisdom. The Nile gives, he said, but it also takes. Don't worship it, listen to it. You didn't understand then, but you think you do now. A gentle breeze passes over the water, and a cluster of papyrus reeds rustle softly. Beyond them, the fields stretch in rippling greens and browns, fading into the golden expanse of desert beyond. It's a sight that hasn't changed in 1,000 years, and maybe won't for 1,000 more. After a while, a few children run down from the village, carrying more water jugs balanced carefully on their heads. They laugh as they splash through the shallows, dropping the jugs beside their parents and darting off to chase dragonflies. Their laughter echoes faintly over the fields, bright and pure, and for a moment it feels as though the heat itself pauses to listen. Khepri points to one of them, a small boy with a reed boat tucked under his arm. "My grandson," he says proudly, "second season helping in the fields." "He'll be better than both of us soon," you say. He nods, eyes softening. That's how it should be. It's in moments like these, quiet, simple, suspended between labor and rest, that you realize how the Egyptians built eternity not through gold, but through rhythm. Work, eat, rest, love, pray, repeat. Every day a small echo of the last. Every life a thread in a vast woven pattern. The temples may crumble someday, the monuments may fade, but this cycle endures. You close your eyes for a moment, listening. the breeze, the water, the low murmur of voices. Then, faintly, from the distance, music. A thin, reedy sound carried over the fields. Someone must be playing a flute, maybe from the far side of the village. The tune drifts and bends, soft and wistful. It reminds you of twilight, of the hour when the sky cools and the first stars appear. A woman nearby hums along to it, her voice gentle and low. It's not a song for gods or rulers, just one of those timeless melodies passed through generations, as constant as the Nile itself. You open your eyes again. The sun has begun its slow slide toward the western sky. Shadows lengthen, and the harsh edge of the heat begins to soften. The workers start to stir, stretching, brushing the dirt from their clothes. Khepri stands, groaning but smiling. Back to it before Ra decides to hide again. You rise too, brushing sand from your knees. The rest has revived you, but your muscles still carry the dull ache of labor, the kind of ache that feels almost satisfying. You pick up your hoe and head back to the rows. The afternoon light has a different quality, golden, slanted, forgiving. The air feels lighter now, touched by the promise of evening. Birds wheel overhead, and the faint scent of smoke drifts from the village. You fall back into rhythm easily, your body remembering the motion before your mind can. As you work, your thoughts wander again to the stories the elders tell, of kings and gods, of how the first pharaoh was chosen by divine order to keep Ma'at, the balance of the world. Maybe it's true, or maybe it's just a story meant to keep people working. But here in the quiet of the fields, you feel that balance in your own hands, between soil and water, effort and rest, giving and receiving. The land doesn't care about thrones, it only asks for patience. By the time the sun touches the horizon, your body is slick with sweat again. The light has turned amber now, casting long shadows across the furrows. The last rays of day shimmer across the water, turning it into molten gold. You pause one last time, resting the hoe on your shoulder, and look out across the fields. The day's labor is visible, rows smoothed, weeds gone, the earth dark and ready. You feel tired, yes, but in that tiredness there's peace. You've done what needed doing. The others begin to leave, laughing softly, calling out goodbyes. The children run ahead, barefoot and quick, leaving small prints in the mud. The air cools as the first breath of evening arrives. You follow the narrow path home, your shadow stretching long behind you. Along the way, you stop at the river again, washing your hands and face. The water reflects the sky, a deep orange fading into violet. You dip your fingers in once more, feeling the gentle current tug at them, as if inviting you to let go. By the time you reach the village, smoke from cooking fires hangs in soft blue threads above the rooftops. You can smell roasting onions, baking bread, and the faint sweetness of date wine. Somewhere nearby, someone beats a small drum, slow and steady, the rhythm of dusk. You duck back into your home. The air inside is cool and dim. Your cat stirs lazily, stretching before curling back up. You light a small oil lamp, its flame flickering to life, throwing soft golden light across the clay walls. On the low table, your wife has left a bowl of lentil stew and fresh bread. You sit down, too tired to speak at first. The first spoonful tastes of home, simple, warm, alive. She joins you a moment later, and together you eat in quiet, the only sound the crackle of the lamp's wick and the distant murmur of evening prayers. Outside, the sky darkens into deep blue. The stars appear one by one, patient, ancient, familiar. Somewhere far to the west, the sun sinks below the horizon, following Ra's daily voyage into the underworld. Tomorrow, he'll rise again, as he always does. And you'll rise too, to the same bread, the same fields, the same rhythm. It might seem ordinary, but here, in this quiet moment, it feels eternal. The village market wakes slowly, like a cat stretching after a long nap. But once it's alive, it hums with energy and the faint scent of spices, smoke, and fresh produce. You step through the narrow lane, your sandals crunching on sand and gravel, and the sounds hit you immediately. A woman calling for a better price on her figs, a man arguing over a copper needle, the soft clink of a potter's wheel in the distance. Everything smells of life, of effort, of the Nile. The first stall is piled with fresh dates, dark and glistening in the morning sun. You run a finger over them, feeling the sticky sweetness, imagining how they'll melt on your tongue with the evening beer. A child nearby licks a small stick, probably sticky with honey, and you chuckle quietly. Life here is simple, but always sweet in its own way. You wander further, noticing the rhythmic sway of baskets hung from poles and beams. They're full of barley, lentils, onions, and garlic. Each one has a small sign etched into clay, indicating the price. Not that anyone actually reads them. Everyone here knows the going rate. Haggling is more a ritual than a necessity, and a smile or a joke often counts more than a coin. A merchant waves at you, a broad grin splitting his face. He has trinkets made of copper and faience beads, the blue ones gleaming like miniature sky fragments. New from the north, he calls, finest colors, straight from the deserts beyond Memphis. You peer at them. They're beautiful, delicate, and utterly unnecessary, but somehow irresistible. You remember what the women whispered about traders with pale skin, and wonder if these are their descendants. Somewhere nearby, the potter's wheel spins steadily. You pause to watch. A lump of clay twists and rises under the master's fingers, forming a small, elegant cup. You can see the faint fingerprints left as he smooths the edges. It's mesmerizing, hypnotic even. You think about how something as ordinary as clay can become beautiful and maybe even sacred under patient hands. You move on to the butcher, who displays small cuts of goat meat. It's morning yet, and the air smells faintly of iron and smoke. A few women inspect it carefully, noses wrinkled in thought, debating which piece will feed their families best. You resist the urge to comment. You're not buying today, only observing. The scribe's stall catches your eye next. He sits beneath a shade, writing small symbols into a scroll with a thin reed brush dipped in ink. His hut smells faintly of papyrus and ink, and you pause a moment, fascinated. It's mesmerizing to watch letters form, each one a universe of meaning. He looks up and nods politely. You nod back, feeling the strange respect that scribes always inspire. They are few, but their power is immense, keeping the records of the river, the crops, and the gods themselves. You meander further, past children chasing each other around the stalls, a goat chewing on a discarded reed, and an old woman selling small clay figurines. She smiles at you knowingly. Some of these figures are sacred, representing household gods. Others are toys for the children. You wonder which is which. It's hard to tell. A faint laugh catches your attention. Two men are bargaining over a pot of honey. "Too much, my friend," one says. "The bees already worked hard enough," replies the other. The woman nearby nods, pretending not to listen, but you catch her grin. Even in commerce, humor threads itself through the day. The smells mingle here like a secret recipe. Roasted barley, fish drying in the sun, onions sizzling on a small fire. You can taste it in your mouth without eating anything, a memory of countless mornings wandering through this maze of life. A group of children darts past, chasing a small wooden boat someone has carved, their laughter carrying over the stalls. You remember your own childhood, running through these same alleys, imagining you were a merchant, a pharaoh, a god of the Nile. The market has always been a place of both work and play, seriousness and nonsense, all intertwined. You pause at a stall selling reeds and papyrus scrolls. A man demonstrates how to flatten the stalks, smooth them with stone, and tie them into a bundle. For records, for spells, for messages to the gods, he says. You watch, fascinated, thinking of the scribe from earlier. Historians still argue whether literacy was widespread or mostly restricted to temple families. But seeing this makes you wonder if even the smallest village had a touch of the sacred in its hands. Nearby, someone is selling small jars of oil and perfume, their scents delicate and heady, frankincense, myrrh, and something sweet and unknown. You breathe it in. The air here is intoxicating, layered, alive. It's not just food or goods, it's culture, memory, and ritual all bundled into a few square meters of earth. A young boy nudges you as he runs past, carrying a handful of figs. "Catch," he calls, tossing one toward you. You let it land on your shoulder, half scolding, half grinning. He laughs and disappears into the crowd. Children here are fearless and quick, like little wind spirits darting between the stalls. The market isn't only about goods, it's about stories. You overhear a man whispering to a group of women about a crocodile seen near the river bend, much larger than anyone has seen before. Some scoff, some whisper, some nod gravely. These stories carry weight. They warn, amuse, and bind the village together. You remember last week's tale of the fisherman who supposedly caught a fish as large as a basket. You shake your head with a small smile. Such exaggeration seems eternal. Finally, you reach a corner where the bakery spreads its wares. Bread is piled high, still steaming from the clay oven. You inhale deeply, letting the smell of yeast and grain fill your senses. It reminds you again of home, of the warmth of the hearth, of breakfast and family. You move along slowly now, taking in the details, the colors, the sounds, the smells. The copper glints, the woven baskets shift, children dart, cats stalk, women barter, men laugh. And through it all, the river hums softly in the background, a reminder that life continues beyond these stalls. Historians still debate whether markets like this were strictly organized or a free-for-all, but standing here, you don't care. There's a rhythm, a pulse that feels right. It's alive, messy, human. You can feel the Nile in the laughter of children, in the smoothness of beads, in the scent of bread and spices. You pause to watch a woman exchange a loaf for a jar of oil. The negotiation is subtle, polite, full of tiny smiles and half-hidden glares. A skillful dance, really, where everyone walks away claiming a victory. You admire her craft, the way she balances warmth, charm, and firmness. The sun climbs higher, and shadows shrink. It's time to leave the market for now, though you glance back once at the lively hub of humanity. There's so much life packed into this small space. Trades, laughter, rumors of gods, small miracles, ordinary acts that together make the village whole. You step away, carrying a small bundle of onions for your home, grateful for the senses, the stories, and the steady rhythm of life. The market has given you more than goods. It's given you a reminder of what the Nile nurtures. Not just crops, but community, curiosity, and quiet joy. By the time you leave the market, the sun is blazing high in the sky, making the air above the sand shimmer like liquid gold. You walk slowly back through the village, savoring the little treasures you've collected. A bundle of fresh onions, a handful of figs, and that tiny blue faience bead tucked safely into your belt. Each item feels alive, carrying a story from someone's hands to yours, as if you're cradling fragments of the village's memory. The narrow lanes are busy, but quieter now than during the market. Chickens wander freely, pecking at stray grains, while cats slink through shadows, alert for any unclaimed morsel. The faint scent of smoke rises from several small ovens, baking bread for those who stayed behind. Somewhere nearby, a man tunes a flute, practicing a lilting melody that drifts across the clay walls and into the alleys. The music, light and airy, reminds you of river breezes in the early morning, carrying papyrus seeds and the soft cries of distant birds. You pause at a shallow well in the center of the village, one of several that supplement the river's water. The wooden bucket smells faintly of algae, and the rope is rough and warm under your hands. You lower the bucket carefully, listening as the water ripples and then comes up full, dark, and earthy. You splash some onto your face, the coolness sharp against the midday heat. Small children giggle nearby, trying to catch the dripping water in their hands. You smile, remembering that you once did the same. A group of women are sitting in the shade of a date palm, chatting and laughing softly. Their voices carry snippets of gossip. Someone's husband left for Memphis months ago, a new merchant arrived, a child fell into the irrigation ditch and emerged soaked but unharmed. You catch the edge of a joke about a cat, and you grin. Cats are eternal sources of amusement here, always managing to appear in the wrong place at exactly the right time. One of the women offers a greeting, and you nod politely. She's older, her hands wrinkled from years of labor and sun, her eyes sharp and assessing. You can see the quiet strength in her posture, the sort of unspoken authority that keeps a household together even when the river floods or a harvest fails. She is like the Nile itself, constant, patient, unforgiving when crossed, yet generous when respected. You continue toward your home, passing the communal grinding stones where villagers have been pounding grain. The rhythmic thump, thump, thump fills the air, almost meditative in its consistency. Several men take turns, pausing to wipe sweat from their foreheads, chatting lightly, teasing one another. A few children mimic the motion, tapping sticks on the stones, clearly not expecting results, but enjoying the sound and rhythm. Historians still argue whether these communal activities were purely practical or a subtle form of social cohesion, but from your perspective, they are both. Necessary work wrapped in the warmth of shared effort. Ahead, the scent of fresh fish grilling draws your attention. Someone has caught Nile perch or perhaps tilapia early this morning, and the fish sizzle gently over coals in a small clay oven. You pause for a moment, inhaling the smoky aroma that mingles with the sweeter scents of bread and dates. It reminds you of river afternoons when your family would gather after work, sharing a simple meal by the water's edge, laughing, talking, and watching the sun sink slowly toward the horizon. Your neighbor Ket waves from his doorway, holding a bundle of reeds. "Working again?" he asks, voice laced with gentle amusement. "Always," you reply. "The Nile doesn't wait for anyone." He laughs, a dry, warm sound, then turns back to his work. You can hear the soft scrape of reed against reed as he bundles them neatly, a simple task performed with pride. As you reach your courtyard, the air grows cooler in the shade of your walls. The cat stretches lazily, tail flicking, before settling into a patch of sunlight. You kneel to stroke its fur, feeling the smoothness, the warmth, and the calm that comes from small, familiar touches. Life here is measured in such moments: the feel of soil, the sound of a child laughing, the comfort of a cat in the sun. A clay jug of water sits nearby, and you take a long drink, letting the cool liquid soothe your throat. The morning's labor weighs on you, but there's a quiet satisfaction in it. Your arms ache, your back protests, yet your body feels alive, attuned to the rhythm of sun, soil, and river. Every ache is a reminder that you are part of something enduring, a single note in a vast, ongoing melody. You sit for a while, letting your eyes wander across the courtyard. Small pots of herbs grow along the walls, basil and coriander, their scents mingling faintly with the earth and smoke. The plastered walls are cracked in places, evidence of years under the sun and wind, yet they stand sturdy, home to generations. You notice a tiny bloom in one of the pots, its petals vivid against the dull clay. Life insists on showing itself, even in the smallest corners. Nearby, a group of children is playing a simple game with sticks and stones. They chase one another, shriek in delight, fall and pick themselves up without complaint. You remember doing the same when you were their age, imagining adventures that stretched beyond the horizon of this small village. Life is, at times, all imagination, all movement, all laughter, and sometimes quiet observation. A soft wind rises, stirring the palm fronds and carrying the distant scent of baking bread from the village's communal oven. The Nile hums faintly in the background, a reminder of constant presence, a pulse that never ceases. You think of the old stories your grandmother told, of Ra's daily journey across the sky, of Osiris and Isis, and how the gods mirror life itself, patient, inevitable, yet filled with moments of wonder. You take another sip from your jug and lean back against the cool wall of your home. The blue bead in your belt catches the sunlight, glinting faintly. A small treasure, a connection to the river, the market, and the stories that flow endlessly through the village. You twist it between your fingers, letting its smoothness remind you that beauty often hides in the most ordinary places. Somewhere, the distant croak of a frog echoes from the irrigation ditch, joined by the faint buzz of a dragonfly. Life continues in quiet abundance, measured in breaths, steps, and simple acts of labor and joy. The village moves as one organism, each person a part of a rhythm that stretches back generations and will continue long after your footprints fade from the sand. You rise slowly, stretching your arms, feeling the muscles relax and settle after the morning's work. There's more to do before the sun fully sinks, but you take a moment to breathe, to listen, to appreciate the quiet pulse of life. The market, the fields, the river, your home, all are threads in a tapestry woven by generations. You are but one small part, yet your presence matters. The shadows lengthen across the courtyard as the afternoon wanes. A distant bell or drum begins its gentle call, signaling that the day is moving toward evening. You take one last look at the patch of herbs, the cat, the sun-bleached walls, the faintly glimmering Nile in the distance. There is beauty here, in this ordinary, enduring life. And somehow, in this ordinary, enduring life, there is peace. The afternoon stretches languidly as you step outside, letting the warmth of the sun wrap around your shoulders. It's the kind of heat that settles deep into your skin, slow and persistent, making every movement deliberate. The village hums with soft activity, children chasing a strayed goat, women fanning themselves as they sort lentils, and men hauling small baskets of grain from one courtyard to another. The rhythm of life feels almost hypnotic, comforting in its predictability. You head toward the river once again, following the narrow earthen paths that wind between mud brick houses and clusters of date palms. The Nile glimmers in the distance, reflecting the late afternoon sun in waves of liquid gold. You pause to admire it for a moment, remembering the old saying, "The river is life, the river is patience. It doesn't rush, it doesn't complain. It simply flows, endlessly, nourishing everything in its path." Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians' reverence for the Nile was purely practical or tinged with spiritual awe. But standing here, feeling its steady presence, you understand why either answer could be true. Near the riverbank, children play with small reed boats, floating them gently along the shallow edge. You watch as one particularly ambitious boy struggles to keep his craft upright, splashing water everywhere in the process. You can't help but smile. Childhood here seems universal, despite the centuries. Laughter mingles with the sound of flowing water, the gentle lap of small waves against the bank, and the distant call of a fisherman coaxing his donkey. You kneel to examine the mud along the water's edge, noticing tiny footprints, perhaps a child, perhaps a bird. The soil is rich and malleable, holding each impression like a memory pressed into the earth. You trace a finger along one set of prints, wondering how many generations have left their marks in the same place. The river has seen it all. The first fishermen, the first reed huts, the first baskets of grain sent downstream. A woman approaches, carrying a small woven basket filled with freshly caught fish. She greets you warmly, offering one for inspection. The scales glint in the sunlight, silver and blue. The smell faintly briny. You nod politely, smiling, though you don't intend to buy today. She laughs softly, shaking her head, before turning to barter with another villager. Bartering is an art here. Negotiation laced with humor and gentle persuasion, a social dance as much as an economic necessity. The riverbank itself is alive with subtle activity. A cluster of reeds sways in the breeze, and within them, dragonflies dart back and forth, iridescent in the sun. Frogs croak intermittently from the water's edge, and you imagine that they are keeping time, a chorus marking the passage of the day. Small fish leap occasionally, breaking the mirror-like surface with tiny splashes. Life is abundant here, constant and patient. You settle onto a flat stone, letting your hands rest in your lap. The water ripples at your fingertips, cool and soothing. Memories drift through your mind. Mornings spent helping your mother grind grain. Afternoons chasing goats along the village paths. Evenings listening to the wind through the reeds. Each memory is a gentle tether, keeping you grounded even as the river stretches far beyond the horizon. A small group of fishermen appear downstream, dragging a net heavy with tilapia. You watch as they work together, their movements synchronized, the net glinting wetly in the sun. Some of the fish struggle and flip, silver flashes against dark water. The fishermen's voices are low and steady, coordinating without haste. It's a scene repeated countless times across centuries. Same river, same rhythm, same life. You feel an odd kinship with them, a quiet connection that transcends your own tasks and troubles. Your gaze drifts upward to the sky, where a single white ibis circles lazily. The bird catches the sunlight, wings wide and elegant, casting a long shadow on the river below. Egyptians consider the ibis sacred, associated with Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. You wonder if it notices you at all, or if it merely glides, content in the flow of the day. Sometimes you think life is exactly like that, floating along, performing your part without questioning, yet still filled with grace. A gentle breeze picks up, brushing against your face and carrying the faint scent of herbs from nearby courtyards. You close your eyes for a moment, letting it stir the sweat on your skin, brushing away the fatigue of the morning and early afternoon labor. Somewhere, a child giggles, a woman hums, and the river laps softly at the edge of reeds. These sounds combine into a quiet symphony, one that requires no conductor or score, only presence to appreciate. You stand slowly, brushing the dust from your tunic, and begin to wander along the bank. Each step presses the soil lightly, leaving ephemeral marks that will soon be washed away by the next ripple or trampling foot. Life here is fleeting in its small details, yet enduring in its patterns. The river reminds you constantly that time flows, but not relentlessly. It curves, bends, and carries everything forward with gentle persistence. Nearby, a cluster of papyrus plants bends under its own weight, the stalks thick and vibrant. You pluck one carefully, feeling its fibrous texture and the slight resistance of its joints. This is how scribes begin their work, how letters come to life, and how stories are preserved. You roll the stalk in your hands, imagining the tiny words that will someday trace across its surface. Each one carries knowledge, history, and memory, linking the present with the past. A small heron wades in the shallow water, moving deliberately, its reflection mirrored in the Nile's surface. You watch its patient stalking, its sudden quick movements, and think about how similar life is to this. Long stretches of quiet punctuated by moments of decisive action. The bird doesn't hurry, yet it accomplishes its purpose. There is a lesson in that, though subtle, almost whispered. You notice a tiny blue bead caught among the reeds near your feet, the same color as the one tucked into your belt. Perhaps it fell from a bracelet. Perhaps it washed downstream during the last flood. You pick it up, feeling its smooth surface, and smile. Small treasures are everywhere if one only notices. The shimmer of water, the curve of a leaf, the glint of clay in sunlight. These are the moments that sustain a life lived in quiet rhythm. As the sun begins its slow descent, shadows stretch long and golden across the water. You feel the first coolness of evening brushing your skin, gentle and welcome after the heat of the day. Children begin to run back toward the village, calling to one another, their voices bright against the soft murmur of the river. Women gather their baskets, men haul the last loads of grain, and the river continues to flow, constant and patient. You pause one last time, taking a deep breath of the river air. The water gleams in the fading light, a reminder that life persists, nurtured by patience, rhythm, and care. Here, in this small slice of eternity, the world is both vast and intimately known. You tuck your tiny beads safely back into your belt, rise to your feet, and make your way back to the village. The day is winding down, yet the sense of continuity, of small, enduring moments, remains strong. Evening settles over the village slowly, like honey dripping from a comb. The sky is a gradient of pink and violet, fading into the deep blue that signals night's approach. You step lightly along the narrow paths, sandals kicking up small clouds of dust as you return from the riverbank. The air is cooler now, carrying with it the faint scent of cooking fires and baked bread. Somewhere nearby, a child calls out to a goat, her voice high and clear, echoing softly across the mud brick walls. As you approach your home, you notice the courtyard beginning to fill with neighbors, drawn together by the fading light. Women carry clay pots, men sling small baskets over their shoulders, and children run ahead, chasing shadows. The village has a rhythm to it, one that shifts subtly as day turns to evening. The sounds soften, the movement slows, and yet there is a quiet energy, a pulse that remains constant. You pause for a moment, listening. It is comforting, almost hypnotic, this living hum of community. You enter your home, and the cat lifts its head, tail twitching lazily. The air inside is cooler, shaded by thick walls and small windows. On the low clay table, a small pot of lentil stew waits, accompanied by bread and a few figs from your morning market trip. You sit cross-legged, savoring the comfort of familiar smells and tastes. Each spoonful feels like a balm after the day's heat, grounding you, reminding you of home. Outside, the evening activities continue. Children chase each other around the central well, their laughter ringing in the still air. Some of the older boys carry small torches, practicing careful balance as they run, pretending the flames are enemies or treasures. You watch, remembering the games you played at their age, imagining you were both hunter and pharaoh, soldier and scribe, all in a single afternoon. A neighbor calls to you from across the courtyard, holding a small reed basket filled with figs. "Fresh from the market," she says. You nod, accepting a few, noting how the fruit's sweetness complements the bread. The tiny blue bead in your belt feels heavier somehow, a reminder that the small, overlooked details are often the most enduring. A child's laugh, a cat's purr, a bead glinting in the fading light. The village begins to quiet as the sun sinks lower, but the river is still alive. You can hear the gentle lap of water against reeds, the occasional splash of a fish, and the soft cooing of doves perched on rooftops. This continuity, this eternal hum, is both grounding and soothing. You feel it in your bones, in the ache of your arms from the fields, in the gentle stiffness of your legs from walking. Life is demanding, yes, but steady and predictable in ways that are comforting. You rise after eating, stretching slowly. Your muscles sigh in relief, the day's work etched into your limbs. Outside, the women begin lighting small oil lamps, their soft glow casting flickering shadows across the courtyard walls. The children sit nearby, mesmerized by the dancing flames, their eyes wide and quiet. You watch them, smiling. There is a sacredness in these moments, the ordinary made extraordinary by attention, by presence. The evening meal finished, you step back outside and take a deep breath. The air is filled with the mingled sense of baking bread, smoke, and the faint sweetness of nearby flowers. The village is alive, but in a slower, more deliberate way. The hustle of the day has softened into gentle movement. A goat nudges a basket, a child crawls into her mother's lap, and someone hums softly, a melody carried down from generations past. You walk slowly toward the river once more, enjoying the quiet walk. The water glints under the setting sun, reflecting streaks of gold and amber. You watch as a fisherman casts his net, silhouetted against the bright horizon. The net falls gracefully, then rises again, glistening with water and fish. You imagine how the same scene has played out countless times over centuries, each fisherman's movements a mirror of the last. Historians still argue whether the techniques were passed orally or through careful observation, but here, seeing it, you realize it hardly matters. The rhythm is eternal. Settling onto a smooth stone near the bank, you dip your fingers into the cool water, letting it slip slowly through your hands. Tiny fish dart away, shimmering like silver threads, and the soft buzz of insects drifts across the surface. The river is alive, unhurried, patient. You watch a dragonfly skim the surface, wings catching the light, and marvel at its precision, its effortless balance. Life here is in the small details, in the subtle dance of water, wind, and creatures. A gentle wind picks up, stirring the reeds along the edge of the riverbank. You close your eyes, letting it brush against your face, cooling the sweat from the afternoon and carrying away the last heat of the day. Somewhere nearby, the soft croak of a frog joins the river's chorus, punctuating the otherwise silent dusk. You remember stories of Hecate, the frog goddess, who brings life and fertility to the land. It feels fitting somehow that in this ordinary moment, you are surrounded by the presence of both natural and divine forces. As darkness deepens, the first stars appear in the sky. They are small and bright, seemingly within reach, yet untouchable. The crescent moon rises, pale and delicate, casting a silver sheen across the water. You notice the reflection of the ibis you saw earlier, now perched on the far bank, wings folded, patient and silent. Life continues its quiet, eternal rhythm, and you are a part of it. Returning to the village, you pause at the central well, watching as the final lamps are lit. Shadows dance across the walls, and the soft hum of evening activities blends with the distant murmur of the Nile. Children are tucked into their mother's arms, laughter now replaced by the gentle cadence of lullabies. The market is quiet, the fields long abandoned until tomorrow's sun. You reach your courtyard once more, settling in the soft glow of the oil lamp. The cat curls at your feet, purring faintly, and the quiet comforts of home envelop you. The day has been full. Labor, market, river, meals, community. Each element interwoven with the next, creating a rhythm both timeless and ephemeral. You think briefly of tomorrow, the fields awaiting, the market bustling again, the river's patient flow. And yet, for now, there is peace. The world slows as night takes hold, and you sink into the simple, profound knowledge that life continues, gentle and steady, carried by the rhythm of sun, soil, and water. Night has fully settled over the village now, and the air is cooler, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and burning oil from the lamps scattered across courtyards. You step outside once more, taking a slow, deliberate walk along the narrow paths. The moon hangs low, casting a silver sheen over mud brick walls, creating long, soft shadows that stretch across the ground. The village is quiet now, yet alive in subtle ways. The distant murmur of the Nile, the soft rustle of palm fronds in the wind, and the occasional meow of a cat patrolling its domain. You pause at the edge of the village to listen. Somewhere a child murmurs a sleepy complaint tucked into the arms of a parent. A goat grazes lazily near a fence, and the faint squeak of its hooves on dry mud adds rhythm to the night. The river whispers in the background, lapping gently against the banks, reminding you that even in darkness, life continues, patient and unhurried. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians viewed the night as a time of rest, reflection, or supernatural vigilance. But standing here, you can see all three at once. The path leads you past the small temple at the village's center. Its walls glow faintly in the moonlight, painted hieroglyphs catching the silver glow. Incense smoke drifts softly into the night, carrying scents of myrrh and frankincense. You remember your grandmother telling you that the gods are more present at night, listening, watching, and sometimes intervening in subtle ways. Perhaps it's true, perhaps not, but the sense of reverence is comforting. You continue toward the riverbank, where fishermen are returning from late catches. The nets they carry glint faintly under the moon, and the occasional fish flaps breaking the stillness with a small splash. Their voices are low, filled with tired satisfaction. You watch for a moment, thinking about how the same river has supported life for millennia. Each movement, each action is a continuation of a pattern older than the village itself. The reeds along the river sway gently, stirred by a soft evening breeze. Within them, dragonflies rest, their iridescent wings catching faint moonlight. A frog calls intermittently, its croak deep and resonant, almost a lullaby for the river. You kneel to run your hand through the cool, damp soil at the edge of the water, feeling the slight stickiness between your fingers, the subtle pulse of life beneath your touch. The moment is grounding, meditative, as if time itself slows. From the distance, you hear the faint scrape of a reed being shaped. Someone is preparing for tomorrow, working quietly under the cover of night. The sound is rhythmic, soothing, and oddly intimate. You remember similar sounds from your childhood, evenings when the village was asleep But life continued in quiet, essential ways. Small acts, unnoticed by many, sustain the entire community. You walk along the river, feeling the coolness of the sand beneath your feet, occasionally brushing your hand against reeds or soft soil. The moonlight reflects off the water in streaks of silver, broken occasionally by a fish leaping or a bird stirring. It is mesmerizing, hypnotic, a reminder that even in ordinary moments, beauty endures. A small fire flickers in the distance where a family sits outside, finishing their evening meal. You can hear quiet laughter, the soft clatter of utensils, the murmur of conversation. These sounds remind you that community extends beyond labor and market, into care, companionship, and shared moments. The river carries all these sounds, blending them into a gentle nocturnal symphony. You pause to gaze at the stars, each one bright and sharp against the deep black sky. Constellations known to your ancestors have guided travelers, inspired stories, and marked the seasons. You trace the faint outline of Orion, thinking of the myths, of Osiris, and of the cycles of life and death. There is a strange comfort in knowing that the same stars have shone over this village for generations, watching over laborers, children, and kings alike. A soft breeze carries the faint aroma of bread from someone's oven and the earthy scent of freshly dug soil. The village is alive in subtle, persistent ways through scent, sound, and movement. You notice a tiny blue faience bead, half buried in the sand, gleaming faintly in the moonlight. You pick it up, the smooth surface warm against your fingers, and tuck it into your belt, a quiet reminder that beauty is often hidden in the mundane. The river murmurs continuously, a living thread connecting the village to distant lands, to past generations, to unseen futures. You kneel and let your fingers skim the surface, feeling the gentle tug of the current. Tiny fish scatter at your touch, silver flashes against dark water. The night is alive but calm, and you feel a deep sense of continuity, of belonging. You rise and start the slow walk back to the village. Shadows stretch long in the moonlight, and the air cools further as evening deepens. The cat follows you silently, tail high, brushing against your legs. You smile, noting that the small creatures of the village also have their rhythms, their routines, and their quiet roles in this living tapestry. Back in the courtyard, the lamps cast soft, golden light across the mud brick walls. Children are tucked into their mother's arms, and the gentle murmur of conversation has faded into the soft breathing of those settling in for the night. You take a seat, stretching your limbs, the aches from the day now settling into comfortable reminders of work done well. The night deepens, bringing with it the kind of quiet that allows reflection and imagination. You glance at the sky, the river, the village, and the soft glow of lamps. Life continues in quiet abundance, measured in small acts, tending the fields, preparing meals, shaping clay, weaving reeds, laughing with neighbors, and watching the river flow. Each moment, though seemingly ordinary, is a link in an eternal chain. As you close your eyes for a brief rest, you hear the river, the wind, and the faint croak of frogs. There is no urgency here, only patience, rhythm, and continuity. Life flows steadily, and you are part of it. You breathe deeply, letting the calm of night settle into your bones, letting the quiet symphony of the village lull your thoughts into gentle stillness. The first whispers of dawn arrive quietly, brushing the village with a soft, rosy glow that seeps through the mud brick walls. You stir from your light sleep, the cool morning air brushing against your skin, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth and the lingering smoke from last night's lamps. The village is still, save for a few early risers. the smell of freshly baked bread drifting from the communal oven, a rooster crowing somewhere in the distance, and the occasional splash of water as someone draws from the river before the sun fully awakens the day. You rise slowly, stretching arms and legs that still feel pleasantly heavy from yesterday's work. Each muscle remembers the rhythm of labor, the tactile memories of hoe, water, and soil. Outside, the courtyard hums quietly, cats padding softly, chickens scratching at the earth, and the occasional whisper of a child already awake. There is a peacefulness to this hour, a gentle liminality between night and day, where the village seems to hold its breath in anticipation of life's daily unfolding. Heading toward the river, you feel the soft morning sand give under your sandals, cool and yielding. The Nile glimmers faintly, reflecting the earliest pinks and golds of the dawn. A fisherman is already at work, casting his net with deliberate patience. You watch, noting how his movements echo generations before him. The net arcs gracefully, settles into the water, and is pulled back with glistening fish wriggling in the weave. Historians still argue whether fishing techniques were passed down formally through apprenticeship or observed informally within families. But here, seeing it in motion, you understand that practice and repetition are the true teachers. Nearby, the reeds sway gently in the breeze, releasing the faint scent of wet earth and river life. Dragonflies hover above the water, their wings catching the weak sunlight like tiny jewels. Frogs begin their early morning chorus, low and resonant, joined occasionally by the sharp croak of a distant heron. The sounds mingle with the gentle ripple of the river, creating a calming symphony that eases the body into wakefulness. You bend to collect water, letting the cool liquid wash over your hands. Tiny fish scatter, silver flashes beneath the surface, and you marvel at the abundance of life sustained here. A small blue bead lies half buried in the mud near the water's edge, glinting faintly. You pick it up, rolling it between your fingers. Tiny treasures appear in the most ordinary places, as if the river itself hides them for those patient enough to notice. The market will awaken soon, but for now, the village is soft and intimate. You see a woman carrying a bundle of reeds, her bare feet silent on the damp earth. She greets you with a nod, and you return it, sharing a moment of recognition without words. The simple communication of presence, the acknowledgement of shared space, feels comforting. A group of children runs past, chasing one another with unrestrained energy. Their laughter is bright against the muted colors of early morning. One trips over a stray stone, falls, then rises without complaint, brushing dirt from her tunic and continuing the chase. You smile, remembering your own childhood in these same lanes, imagining adventures far beyond the horizon. Children here are fearless, their energy a constant reminder that life regenerates itself endlessly. You continue walking along the riverbank, noting the subtle changes in the water. Patches of papyrus drift gently, and a heron lifts off silently, wings outstretched, gliding just above the surface. You pause to watch, appreciating the elegance and patience of its flight. Life here, from the smallest fish to the largest bird, is measured in rhythm and quiet motion. Further along, the smell of freshly baked bread grows stronger. You see a neighbor kneading dough outside a low clay oven. Smoke curls up lazily, mingling with the morning air. The woman hums a soft tune, her hands pressing and folding the dough with care. You watch her, noting how ordinary labor is imbued with quiet grace, a blend of necessity and ritual. A faint sound of reeds snapping in the wind draws your attention. A boy is practicing the flute near the edge of the village, his notes tentative at first, then growing more confident as he loses himself in the melody. The sound is soft and almost hesitant, blending with the river's flow, the frogs' croaks, and the distant calls of early risers. Music, even in its simplest form, holds the village together as much as water or labor, creating continuity across generations. You pause on a small rise overlooking the fields, watching the long rows of barley and lentils shimmer in the early light. Farmers are beginning to stir, heading toward their plots with tools in hand, speaking quietly to one another. There is a calm efficiency in their movements, a dance perfected through repetition. Historians still debate whether agricultural techniques were centralized knowledge or learned entirely at the family level. But either way, the results are visible in these fertile, well-tended fields. A cool breeze carries the scent of herbs growing along the edges of courtyards, basil, coriander, and the faint trace of mint. You inhale deeply, letting the fragrances mingle with the earthy aroma of river mud and morning fires. Small details like these are often overlooked, but they mark the day, giving rhythm and texture to life that is otherwise measured in labor and sustenance. You bend to touch the soil, feeling its slight dampness from last night's condensation. Life is contained in this ordinary earth, worms, insects, and tiny seedlings pushing through, waiting for the sun's full warmth. Even the soil seems to participate in the eternal rhythm of village life, connecting you, the farmers, the children, and the river itself in a shared continuity. Returning toward the village, you see a small gathering forming at the communal grinding stones. Women and girls pound grain, chatting softly, their voices weaving into the gentle morning hum. The rhythm of the mortar and pestle is almost hypnotic, grounding, and you realize that the ordinary labor of this village is nothing short of sacred. Each movement preserves life, knowledge, and tradition. You pause one last time at the river's edge before heading home, feeling the gentle tug of the current against your hands, watching the sunlight glint off rippling water. Small fish dart in patterns, birds glide above, and the faint hum of reeds in the breeze fills the air. Life continues, quiet, deliberate, and beautiful, sustained by patience, observation, and the enduring pulse of the Nile. The morning gradually unfolds into late morning, and the village begins to stir fully. You step into the sunlit streets, feeling the warmth seep into your skin and energize your limbs. Children run past, their laughter weaving through the air, chasing one another with abandon, sticks in hand, imagining battles or treasures in the dusty lanes. The goats follow behind, nimbly navigating the uneven ground, their bells jingling faintly in rhythm with the playful chaos. You pause, taking a deep breath, letting the sounds and scents of the village saturate your senses. Sun-baked mud, the sweet tang of dried figs, and the earthy aroma of the nearby fields. You walk toward the communal bakery, where the smell of fresh bread greets you like an old friend. The oven, built of clay and stone, radiates warmth that reaches even the courtyard outside. A young woman carefully slides loaves onto a reed mat, letting them cool. She hums softly, a tune that seems to have floated through generations. You watch her movements, the delicate balance of patience and speed, the subtle way she tests each loaf with a gentle tap, listening to the hollow sound that signals readiness. It's an ordinary act, yet filled with grace. Nearby, a man fans a small fire under a clay pot of boiling lentils, keeping the flames steady. He nods at you in greeting, his hands darkened from labor, calloused yet deft. Life here is measured in such acts, tending fires, shaping dough, coaxing the earth's bounty into sustenance. You notice the faint gleam of sweat on his forehead, the small smile as he works, and the pride in every careful motion. Even in labor, there is a quiet joy that pervades the village. You wander past the market area, now reawakening with small-scale trades and exchanges. A woman displays baskets of onions and garlic, while a boy hands a clay jug to an older man, balancing it carefully. The rhythmic flow of commerce is soft, understated, yet essential. Each transaction is also a social dance, full of subtle gestures, tiny negotiations, and unspoken agreements. Historians still argue whether the market was purely economic or deeply intertwined with social hierarchy. Yet here, it feels both. The river glistens faintly in the distance, the water reflecting sunlight like scattered diamonds. You decide to make your way there, walking along the winding path bordered by reeds and papyrus. Dragonflies dart across the surface, their wings catching the sunlight, and you pause to watch their delicate patterns. A heron stands silently in the shallow water, waiting patiently for the right moment to strike. Life here is a series of small, deliberate rhythms. The hunter, the river, the fish, the reeds, all moving in intricate, interdependent choreography. As you reach the riverbank, you notice a few fishermen preparing their nets for the day. They move with practiced ease, checking knots, untangling small snags, and speaking quietly to one another. Their work seems effortless, yet it is the result of long experience, repetition, and observation. You watch, fascinated, noting the subtle differences in technique among them, the ways in which each has adapted to the river's moods and currents. Nearby, a woman washes freshly harvested vegetables in the shallow water. She swirls them gently, letting silt fall away, her hands moving in fluid, familiar motions. You notice the reflection of her face in the water, lined with early signs of labor, yet serene. This simple act, repeated countless times by countless generations, sustains life and nourishes the village. Each movement is deliberate, careful, and reverent in its way. You step closer to the water, letting your fingers trail through its cool surface. Tiny fish dart around, scattering at your touch, and you smile at the delicate ecosystem thriving along the riverbank. The reeds sway, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and the faint, sweet aroma of nearby flowers. Frogs croak intermittently, and the distant hum of the village reaches your ears, soft and constant. Life pulses here, quiet yet persistent, demanding attention to notice its subtleties. A group of children approaches, carrying small wooden boats made from reeds and scraps of wood. They giggle as they place the boats in the water, watching them float along the gentle current. One tips over, splashing water onto another child, who squeals in delight. You remember doing the same as a child, imagining grand adventures while the village quietly hummed around you. Play, it seems, is as essential as work, both threads woven into the tapestry of life. The sun climbs higher, and the heat of late morning begins to press against your skin. You seek the shade of a date palm nearby, resting against its rough trunk. You can hear the village continuing in the distance, women carrying water, men tending fields, the occasional clang of pottery shaping under careful hands. Even in these ordinary moments, life feels abundant, meaningful, and steady. Historians still debate how much of daily village life in ancient Egypt was dictated by religious practices versus practical necessity. Yet observing these rhythms, it's clear that both coexist seamlessly. Offerings to household gods, daily prayers, and the placement of small figurines all blend with labor, food preparation, and tending animals. The sacred and the mundane intertwine naturally, creating a life rich in ritual, responsibility, and subtle wonder. You notice a tiny blue bead among the reeds at your feet, glinting faintly. Picking it up, you feel its smooth surface between your fingers, a miniature treasure, a reminder that beauty and meaning often exist in the smallest, overlooked places. You tuck it into your belt, the habit bringing a quiet, comforting continuity to your day. As you rise to continue your walk, the breeze carries the faint scent of baked bread, cooking fires, and herbs from nearby courtyards. Children's laughter fades behind you as they wander back home, called by parents preparing the midday meal. The village is alive, patient, and enduring, its rhythm unbroken by time or toil. The river glimmers in the background, a silent witness to generations past, present, and yet to come. You pause at the water's edge one last time, feeling the cool touch of the Nile against your fingertips, watching the sunlight ripple across its surface. Life continues here, quiet and steadfast, a tapestry of labor, play, care, and observation. You breathe deeply, taking in the smells, sights, and sounds, letting the gentle rhythm of the village seep into your bones, grounding you in the enduring pulse of the Nile. The sun has climbed higher, casting a warm, steady glow across the village. Shadows shrink beneath mud brick walls, and the day hums with quiet energy. You step out of your courtyard and move through the familiar lanes, feeling the familiar textures under your feet. Sun-warmed sand, occasional stray pebbles, and the rough edges of cracked mud bricks that have weathered generations. The village is fully awake now. Women carry water jars with careful balance, children scurry with small bundles of firewood, and goats wander the alleys, nudging at discarded scraps of food. You make your way toward the communal granaries, where the smell of stored grain is thick and comforting. The large clay jars are filled with wheat, barley, and lentils, their surfaces etched with the marks of careful hands. Men lift baskets of grain, tipping them into containers with practiced ease. You pause to watch the rhythm, noting how each movement is deliberate, efficient, yet almost gentle. Life here is a balance, labor infused with care, necessity blended with attentiveness. Historians still debate how grain storage was managed in small villages versus major cities, but here the evidence is in the hands that work the clay, the sweep of dust from jars, and the careful counting of each measure. Nearby, children play quietly with small wooden toys, carved simply yet with evident skill. They imitate adults, pretending to lift baskets, tend fires, or ferry water. Their games are not merely diversion, they are rehearsal, an early education in the skills and rhythms they will need to sustain life. You kneel to observe a small girl attempting to balance a reed basket on her head. She wobbles, smiles, and tries again, each effort building confidence and connection to her environment. The sun casts a bright light on the fields beyond the village. You can see farmers tending rows of barley and lentils, hoes slicing into the earth, hands spreading seeds, and water from the Nile trickling into carefully dug channels. Each movement is methodical, deliberate, and necessary. You pause to watch a man guide water into a field, adjusting the small embankments to ensure each plant receives nourishment. Life here depends entirely on such rhythms, on attention and care repeated day after day, generation after generation. Walking along the irrigation channels, you notice the small creatures that thrive in these wet margins. Frogs calling intermittently, insects skimming the water surface, and small fish darting in shaded pools. Everything has its place, and each contributes to the delicate balance of life. You dip a hand into a shallow channel, feeling the cool water flow through your fingers, sending shivers up your arms. There's a quiet joy in connecting to this ecosystem, in noticing that every ripple carries life. The midday air grows warm, and you seek the shade of a date palm near the river. You watch a fisherman adjust his net, tossing it skillfully into the water, then retrieving it with a small catch. He works alone, but with absolute patience, understanding the river's moods, the patterns of fish, and the subtle indications of a successful haul. It's a dance between human skill and natural rhythm. Historians still argue whether fishing techniques were standardized across regions or adapted individually. Yet each net thrown is a testament to observation, trial, and tradition. From the riverbank, you notice a group of women washing freshly harvested vegetables. They bend gracefully, submerging leafy greens, rinsing away soil, and arranging them in neat piles. Their hands are wet and darkened from work, yet every movement is precise and fluid. You catch the faint laughter of one woman as a small frog leaps unexpectedly from the water, and you smile at the timelessness of the moment. Life continues in quiet patterns, punctuated by small surprises that break the rhythm only slightly before it resumes its steady flow. Children return intermittently to the river, floating small reed boats or tossing pebbles into the water. You watch them as they play, noticing how every gesture is imbued with concentration and delight. They mimic adult behaviors in miniature, practicing skills they will later rely upon in labor and craft. There is a timelessness to this, an endless cycle of learning through observation and imitation. You kneel beside one boy, helping him steady his boat, and he beams at your attention, unaware that you too are learning patience, observation, and the intricate rhythms of everyday life. You wander along the riverbank, feeling the sunlight warming your skin. The reeds sway in the gentle breeze, and the distant hum of the village continues. Women calling to one another, the faint clatter of clay pots, children's laughter echoing softly across mud brick walls. You notice a heron take flight, its wings catching the sunlight and casting long shadows across the water. Its movement is deliberate, graceful, and effortless, a reminder of the natural balance that underpins human life. A small pile of discarded reeds catches your attention, and you pick one up, rolling it between your fingers. Its fibrous texture reminds you of weaving, of mats and baskets that sustain everyday life. The simplest materials, handled with care and skill, yield beauty and utility. You place it back carefully, noticing the subtle interplay of light and shadow on the water, the reeds, and your surroundings. Life here is subtle, patient, and profoundly interconnected. The sun climbs higher still, and the heat begins to press against the village. You head back toward the central courtyard, passing the communal ovens and wells. The aroma of cooking food mingles with the earthiness of the fields and the faint sweetness of date palms. Women carry baskets of herbs and vegetables, children chase stray animals, and men move with quiet diligence, ensuring every task is completed. You realize that the village's beauty lies in this orchestration of ordinary labor, small acts creating the fabric of enduring life. You pause by the central well, dipping your hands into the cool water. Tiny ripples spread across the surface, reflecting sunlight in fleeting patterns. You notice a small blue bead nestled against the stone, glinting faintly. Picking it up, you feel the smooth surface, a miniature treasure linking you to the river, the village, and the countless generations who have lived here before. As the day reaches its full heat, you retreat into the shade of your courtyard. The cat curls at your feet, purring softly. The village hums around you, a gentle symphony of labor, life, and continuity. The river flows tirelessly in the distance, carrying stories, life, and rhythm across time. You settle in, letting the warmth of the sun and the gentle murmur of the village sink into your bones, grounding you in the enduring pulse of everyday life. The late afternoon sun hangs low in the sky now, casting long shadows that stretch across the village lanes. You wander slowly through the familiar paths, feeling the warm earth beneath your feet and the gentle hum of activity all around. The goats have returned from the fields, nibbling lazily on stray reeds and fallen scraps, while children chase one another in quiet bursts of laughter that echo softly against mud brick walls. There is a comforting predictability to these movements, a rhythm that has persisted for generations. Yet each moment feels unique, alive, and immediate. You make your way toward the riverbank, noting the shimmering reflections of the sun on the water's surface. The Nile flows with patient persistence, carrying with it stories, fish, and the history of countless villagers who have relied upon its steady rhythm. A fisherman casts his net with practiced ease, the heavy weave falling into the water and then lifting, glinting with a small catch. You watch quietly, appreciating the fluidity of his movements, the intimate knowledge of the river evident in every action. Historians still debate how widely such techniques were shared across regions, whether passed down orally, observed directly, or learned through apprenticeship. Yet here, the skill is obvious, silent, enduring, precise. Near the reeds, a group of women sorts through harvested vegetables, washing and preparing them for storage. Their hands move deftly, water dripping in rhythmic splashes. One of them laughs as a small frog leaps unexpectedly from the mud, startling the children playing nearby. You smile at the timelessness of this scene, imagining countless mornings and afternoons where similar laughter, small surprises, and careful work have punctuated life along the river. You wander closer to the water, letting your fingers trail through the cool, glistening surface. Tiny fish dart away, creating fleeting silver flashes. Dragonflies hover nearby, their wings catching sunlight in miniature rainbows, while reeds sway gently with the breeze. Life here is unhurried, deliberate, and deeply interconnected. Human labor, river currents, plant growth, and animal movements all intertwine in a dance that has endured for centuries. A young boy approaches, carrying a small reed boat he has crafted himself. You kneel to help him steady it as he places it gently in the water. The boat wobbles precariously, then rights itself, and the boy beams with pride. You remember your own childhood experiments with makeshift crafts, learning patience, balance, and observation through play. Here, the boundaries between work and play, learning and life, are fluid and ever-present. The village itself hums quietly in the background. Women call to each other as they gather firewood and sort baskets of produce. Men haul small loads of grain or mend tools, and children weave in and out of pathways with the unrestrained energy of youth. The scent of baked bread drifts lazily from the communal ovens, mingling with the earthy aroma of fields and riverbanks. You pause to inhale deeply, letting these familiar fragrances anchor you in the day, in the village, in the gentle continuity of life. You notice a heron standing still in a shallow pool of the river, waiting patiently for the right moment to strike. Its movements are deliberate, careful, a perfect mirror to the laborers along the banks. You smile quietly to yourself. Nature and human life seem to follow similar rhythms, the patient dance of waiting, observing, and acting when the time is right. Historians still argue whether ancient villagers consciously mirrored natural patterns or if it emerged organically through observation and necessity, but the harmony is undeniable. The late afternoon sun now throws a warm golden glow over the river, illuminating reeds, papyrus, and distant palm trees. You rest for a moment on a smooth stone, letting the river's soft lapping against the bank soothe your thoughts. The breeze carries a faint scent of herbs from nearby gardens and the earthy smell of wet soil. You notice a tiny blue bead partially buried in sand and reeds, the third one you've spotted in the last few days. You pick it up, rolling it gently between your fingers. Such small treasures, unnoticed by most, link the mundane to the eternal, grounding you in the quiet beauty of ordinary life. Children continue to play nearby, floating their reed boats along the gentle current, racing them, tipping them, and laughing as they right them again. You watch the interplay of skill, patience, and imagination in their movements, recognizing that these games are more than mere diversion. They are early lessons in observation, coordination, and resilience. You kneel to steady a boat that threatens to overturn, sharing a quiet moment of guidance and connection with the child. The riverbank is alive with subtle signs of life. Reeds sway gently, a dragonfly darts across the water, and frogs croak intermittently. A fisherman lifts his net, revealing a modest but sufficient catch, while another carries a clay pot filled with water back to the village. You feel the pulse of the community in every movement, every exchange, every small deliberate action. Life is both simple and complex, immediate and timeless, carried forward by these patterns. As the sun continues its descent, shadows lengthen across the village. You take a slow walk back toward the central courtyard, passing familiar faces. Women carry baskets of herbs and vegetables, greeting one another softly. Children run ahead, calling out as they return home, their energy slightly dampened by the day's heat. Men finish tending fields and nets, their movements slower but steady, attuned to the rhythm of the late afternoon. You pause near the communal well, dipping your hands into the cool water. Tiny ripples spread across the surface, reflecting the golden light and the long shadows of palm fronds. The village continues around you, unhurried, deliberate, and enduring. You notice a faint glint in the corner of the well, a tiny blue bead, smooth and round. You pick it up and tuck it into your belt, a quiet reminder that beauty often resides in the overlooked details, the small treasures that anchor us to the present. The late afternoon fades gently into early evening. Shadows deepen, the air cools, and the village slows its rhythm, transitioning from labor to preparation for night. The river continues to flow, patient and constant, a silent witness to the day's activities. You pause to take it all in. The sun's warm glow on water and sand, the gentle murmur of voices and movement, the shimmer of small treasures hidden along the bank. Life here is steady, rhythmic, and profoundly interconnected, a delicate balance maintained through generations of careful observation, work, and presence. Section 15. The evening descends slowly now, softening the village in a warm amber glow. The sun dips low, spilling light across mud brick walls and the river's gentle surface. Shadows stretch long, weaving between homes, courtyards, and the narrow alleyways where children played just hours ago. You walk slowly through the familiar lanes, feeling the day's warmth linger in the earth beneath your sandals, the faint imprint of goats' hooves and wandering feet still visible in the dust. Life has a gentle rhythm at this hour, a blend of calm preparation and lingering activity, a quiet orchestration that carries both familiarity and wonder. You make your way toward the riverbank, your feet pressing into soft sand and scattered reeds. The Nile glimmers under the last rays of sunlight, a mirror of gold and silver. A lone fisherman hauls in his final net for the day, fish glinting wetly in his hands. The water laps against the reeds, sending small ripples toward the bank. You pause, kneeling to let your fingers brush the cool surface. Tiny fish scatter, fleeting flashes of silver, darting through the current with effortless grace. Dragonflies skim above, their wings catching the fading light like shards of glass. The river hums softly, a steady pulse connecting past, present, and future. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians saw the Nile merely as a practical resource or as a living deity in its own right. But here, in this moment, the answer feels self-evident. It is both. A group of women gathers near the shallow water, washing vegetables and herbs for the evening meal. Their hands move with fluid precision, water splashing softly in time with their gentle chatter. Nearby, children chase one another, tossing small reed boats into the gentle current and squealing when one tips over. You watch the play with quiet amusement, remembering your own childhood along these same banks. The same laughter and same lessons in patience, balance, and observation. Even play is a thread in the tapestry of daily life, a preparation for work, a lesson in resilience, and a celebration of freedom. The warm breeze carries the mingled scents of baked bread, herbs, and damp soil. You inhale deeply, feeling it fill your lungs, grounding you in the continuity of the village. Each aroma, each sound, each small movement is a reminder that life is composed of countless interconnected rhythms. The cat at your feet purrs softly, circling before settling, its presence a subtle anchor in the flowing world. You walk along the river, noticing the delicate sway of reeds, the occasional croak of a frog, the glimmer of small fish below the surface. A heron lifts off silently, wings outstretched, gliding above the water with effortless grace. Life continues here, steady and patient, each creature fulfilling its role, each movement part of a quiet harmony. You pause to watch, feeling a deep sense of connection, as though the village, the river, and the surrounding fields are all breathing together in a slow, deliberate rhythm. As twilight deepens, lamps are lit in courtyards, casting warm, flickering light across walls and pathways. The aroma of evening meals mingles with the last traces of sunlight, carrying faint notes of roasted lentils, fresh bread, and herbs. Families gather around fires, sharing stories, laughter, and gentle conversation. You watch a child place a small blue bead on a windowsill, the same glinting treasure you have noticed before, a tiny symbol of beauty hidden in plain sight. The river reflects the colors of the evening sky, deepening from gold to violet, then finally to indigo. Stars begin to appear, first faintly, then boldly, shimmering above in the clear night. You recognize familiar constellations just as your ancestors would have: Orion, Sirius, and the Big Dipper, each carrying stories, marking time, guiding travelers. The moon rises slowly, casting silver light across the water, illuminating reeds, ripples, and the distant silhouette of palm trees. You settle onto a smooth stone at the riverbank, letting the cool touch of water soothe your fingers. The village hums softly in the distance, the faint clatter of pots being set aside, the low murmur of conversation, the occasional sigh of wind through the date palms. You close your eyes briefly, letting the sounds, scents, and textures of the evening wash over you. The day's work, play, and observation have all carried their lessons, and now a gentle stillness sets in. Slowly, you allow your thoughts to drift, untethered from labor or concern. You imagine the villagers of centuries past performing the same tasks, laughing, learning, and caring in the same patterns that continue today. The river flows on, patient and enduring, reflecting the moon and stars above. The night air is soft and cool, carrying the faint, comforting scent of herbs and baked bread. Life has slowed to a gentle cadence, and you feel your own heartbeat align with the rhythm of the village and the river. The gentle rustle of reeds, the quiet croak of frogs, and the soft hum of the river provide a lullaby of natural sounds. You inhale deeply, letting the calm sink into your bones, and exhale slowly, releasing the last tension of the day. There is peace here, subtle yet profound, a sense of continuity that transcends hours, days, and even centuries. You tuck the tiny blue beads safely into your belt, a reminder of the small treasures that anchor life to meaning, wonder, and presence. As the night deepens, the village quiets further. Children are tucked into their mother's arms, the cat curls more fully at your feet, and the river flows silently yet steadfastly. The lamps flicker gently, casting soft shadows across walls and pathways. You feel the day's rhythm dissolving into the night, the gentle pulse of labor, play, observation, and reflection merging into a slow, tranquil cadence. You breathe in once more, feeling the cool air brush your face, and allow your body and mind to settle into the stillness. The river, the village, and the night are intertwined, each supporting the other, each continuing its quiet, enduring song. You close your eyes, letting the gentle sounds of frogs, wind, and flowing water carry you toward rest. The day has ended, but the continuity of life persists, patient, calm, and eternal. The air grows softer now, cooler against your skin. You hear the distant lap of water against the bank, faint whispers of leaves in the wind, and the muted coo of doves returning to their roosts. The warmth of the day fades gently, replaced by the serenity of night. Your body relaxes into the soft earth, each muscle unwinding, each thought slowing. Tiny details linger, the shimmer of reeds in moonlight, the faint glow of oil lamps, the subtle scent of baked bread and herbs carried on the night breeze. You allow these sensations to fill your awareness, a gentle anchor in the present, softening every worry, every tension. Life here is steady, patient, and endearing, flowing with the river, humming with the village, and whispering through the reeds. You exhale, releasing the day, and inhale, drawing in the calm. The rhythm of the village and river merges with your own pulse, slow, deliberate, and soothing. You feel your eyelids grow heavy, your mind floating gently on the current of quiet continuity. Rest is near, soft as the night air, patient as the river, endearing as the village itself. Sweet dreams.